Hi, Diane. I appreciate you being here today. What's been on your mind?
Well, I feel pulled in many different directions. My husband Tom and I are at a point where I expected us to have more time together, but I'm still the one holding everything together between my aging parents, my adult kids need support, and my siblings not stepping up. It's exhausting. I feel like I'm expected to manage everyone else's needs before my own.
That sounds overwhelming. Like you've always been the caretaker. Even as things change, people still expect you to be in that role. How is this affecting your relationship with Tom?
Well, needless to say, he's frustrated. He thinks I put everyone else before our marriage, and he's understandable, but I know deep down he feels like he's not a priority.
That's a difficult balance to manage. How do you feel when he expresses that?
Well, tell you the truth, I really feel guilty. I tell myself I have no choice, but deep down, I think I could be handling things. There should be a way to handle things differently, so he doesn't have to suffer too.
Let's take a deeper look at how these patterns developed and how we might shift them. To
Okay.
get a clearer picture, I'd like to map out a genogram. It's a visual representation of your family relationships and the emotional patterns.
Mhm.
We'll explore how to see expectations may have been passed down. Let's start with your immediate family.
Okay. But there's my husband, Tom. He's 60. We've been married for 35 years. We have two children, Emily, 28, and Jake, 26. My parents, John and Margaret, are in their late 80s. And I have two siblings, Lisa, 48, and Michael, 45.
Let's talk about your parents. How did they approach family roles when you were growing up?
My mom did everything. She was always taking care of us. My dad, he was the main provider. He worked long hours and expected mom to be the traditional wife and take care of the household. I think I absorbed that mentality that I'm just the caregiver for everybody.
And your siblings, did they share the responsibilities?
Not really, not really. Lisa was always independent, and since Michael was the youngest, he actually was the baby, and so he got away with all kinds of stuff. And then I was the one that mom knew she could rely on.
If I asked Lisa and Michael how they saw your role, what do you think they'd say?
Well, I'm sure Lisa would say I'm the one that everybody can count on, and I'm the one most responsible to get things done. Michael would say I'm bossy because only because I had to be.
Now, how do your kids, Emily and Jake, see you?
Well, they see me as dependable, always available. Emily comes, to me with every decision she has to make. She doesn't make any decision without talking to me. And then Jake calls me whenever he has a real issue.
Hmm. We've uncovered some patterns today through the genogram. These patterns have likely shaped how you navigate relationships, but recognizing them is the first step. Before we move into role playing, I want you to take a moment to reflect. What would it mean for you to step back from the caretaker role, not just in action, but in identity?
Hmm, that's terrifying. If I'm not the one making sure everything runs smoothly, then who am I? It's like how I identify myself. And then what if my family starts resenting me for being less available? I mean, that's a real fear because they all look to me to be the problem solver, the fixer, and all of that. So I don't know. I don't know how that would look in my life. I really don't.
That's a valid concern. And it makes sense that this change feels daunting. What
Yeah.
if we focused on the fear of stepping back? If we focused on what stepping back makes possible for you and your family,
Mhm.
how might shifting your role create space for others to grow and contribute?
Hmm. I never thought about, allowing them to grow if I step back from being so hands-on with everything. I didn't realize, um, that part would make a big difference, for me as well as them. I didn't think that it would be, you know, that I'm somewhat supporting their way of life because I've made it easy for me, made it easy for them to count on me.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that I really need to look at that part, just letting people be and maybe sometimes letting them fall on their butts if that's what needs to happen. Yeah.
Exactly. With that in mind, let's transition into some role playing exercises to explore what these changes look like in action.
Okay.
Let's try a different approach though. I'll play Tom and I want you to practice responding
Okay.
in a way that acknowledges his feelings, but also expresses your needs.
Okay. I'm ready.
Diane, I feel like you give everything to your parents and the kids, but I get whatever's left. I don't want to feel like I'm competing for your attention. I know you don't need to push me aside, but I feel like I'm always waiting for my turn, and that turn never comes. What do you think about that?
Hmm. Tom, I hear you. I know that my time is stretched so thin that it feels like I'm putting you last. And that's not my intention ever. I spent so long making sure everybody's okay that I've neglected what we need together. I want to change that, but I need us to figure out what it looks like together. Can we start a conversation about what you need from me right now?
That's a great shift, Diane. Instead of just responding to Tim's frustration, you're inviting collaboration into finding a healthier balance. This approach reinforces partnership instead of reinforcing guilt or avoidance. How does it feel to approach a conversation in this way?
It really does feel different. I used to try to justify why I was so busy, but this feels more like I'm actually listening. I think it would be hard for me to change overnight, but if we can keep talking like this, maybe things won't feel so unbalanced. So yeah,
Yes.
that felt a lot better.
Good. All right, let's shift to Emily. She's calling you again for help making a decision. How can you encourage her independence while still offering guidance? Mom, I have this job offer, but I don't know if I should take it. It has better pay, but I like my coworkers and my current job. What do you think I should do?
But Emily, I know this is important to you. This decision is big, and I appreciate that you trust me to help you talk things through. I want to help, but I want to make sure you're making a decision that feels right for you. What are you considering? What are your the pros and cons and what makes you feel does it line up with what you really, really want in your life and your career and even your atmosphere? Because, maybe raises and pay aren't the best thing, but the atmosphere, work atmosphere does go a long way. So think about more about what you really want when you go to work, and that should help you make your decision. And then I'll back you up.
Thanks, Mom. I think the new job is better for my career long term, but I am scared of leaving my comfort zone.
That makes sense. Change is always scary for all of us. But, growth comes from stepping out of your comfort zone. Because think about where you were last year. If you hadn't made some of the decisions you made, you wouldn't be where you are now or even qualify for this new job. So think about all of those factors and maybe that'll help you make a better decision.
That's a
And does
great,
that help you feel, would this job make you feel more fulfilled and happier? Is that, what you're aiming for?
I love that, Diane. That's a great question to consider. A couple of great questions to consider. You're helping Emily take ownership of her choices rather than deciding for her. That shift is a big part of reinforcing independence for both of you. You're allowing her to step into her own decision-making process, which aligns with the broader changes we've discussed today. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've covered today.
Yeah.
We explored how family roles have shaped your current struggles. We practiced shifting perspectives through reframing and engaged in role playing exercises with Tom and Emily. One key takeaway is that stepping back doesn't mean abandoning your loved ones, but creating a space for them to grow. I'd like to introduce the miracle question before we leave today. I want you to think about what would be different if you woke up tomorrow and your problem no longer existed.
Mm.
What would change in your daily routine, your interactions, and your relationships?
Mm. Wow. I think the biggest change would be is that I could prioritize the things that are closer to my own desires, um, and my own needs. Um, and the guilt would be gone from problem solving for everybody. And really focus on the things that I need and within my own, my own nucleus. Since my kids are adults, I shouldn't have to be so hands-on. Um, and since Tom and I are really trying to enjoy the last years, our later years, then we'd be able to focus on us more. And I wouldn't be so pulled apart and distracted all the time, even if it's not the actions, it's the thought patterns. So I think that would make a big difference if I were to just wake up and everything was gone. And then I could just focus on really what means the most to me, my priorities. It would change my priorities for sure.
That's a powerful realization. Instead of just waiting for circumstances to change, we can focus on the small steps that move you toward becoming the version of yourself that you want to be, free. I'd like you to do two things for homework. First, take some time to journal. Think about what your life would look like if that miracle occurred.
Okay.
Don't just think about how others would change, though. I want you to focus on how you would be different.
Mhm.
Identify one small concrete change you can implement now that aligns with that vision.
Mm. Well, this gives me a lot to think about. Like the idea of starting small rather than trying to change everything at one time, because I still fixer mode. And I think the journaling exercise will help me sort through my feelings and my boundary setting that I've been so terrible at before. But I know it's important, and it would help me really set some things in order for my life.
Mhm. That's completely understandable, Diane. Boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first,
Mhm.
but they help create that balance in those healthier relationships.
Yeah.
So, even noticing when you feel the hesitation, that's important.
Mm.
Second thing I'd like you to do is to think about one relationship where you tend to overextend yourself.
Mm.
Choose a small but meaningful boundary you can set this week. Observe how it impacts you and the other person, and we'll reflect on this in the next session.
Okay. That'll be interesting. I think my first instinct will still be to jump in, but I'll try to restrain myself. I might even write down what I notice. Yeah.
That sounds like a great plan. I'm excited for you to try these two assignments. And just know that change happens gradually. Even the
Mm.
smallest shift can make a big difference. I look forward to hearing about what comes up for you in the next week. Let's check in during our next session to discuss what felt helpful and where we might need to adjust things.
All right. That sounds good. Thank you. I feel like I do have some real direction now. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.